When did someone ever give you an ultimatum? By that time, I had already raised 8 of my mom's adopted kids. You see, my mom was obsessed with social status. Every adoption got her another newspaper article, another likes on Facebook. The thing was, she never actually wanted to parent them. That was my job. It all started when I was 9, and she brought home the first baby, a premature infant from Guatemala who needed round-clock care. "You're so mature for your age," she'd said, handing me the feeding schedule at AM. "This will teach you responsibility." Well, I was making the kids packed lunches when she called a family meeting and slid photos across the table. 3 babies from Ukraine, all under 2, one with cerebral palsy. "Mom, I can't do this anymore," I said, voice shaking. "I need to finish school. I've already missed days this year." She tilted her head. "Are you saying you won't help these innocent children?" "I'm saying I'm exhausted." That night, after everyone was asleep, she came to my room. "Fine, don't help." She showed me their medical files. "But either you care for them," she said quietly, "or they suffer. Your choice." My head spun while I processed what she was saying. She knew I couldn't watch babies suffer, that I would always choose them over me. The next morning, I tested the waters. Instead of staying home with Vance, who had the flu, I went to first period, just one class. When I got home, I found my year-old brother, Danny, on the kitchen floor shaking. He's diabetic and his blood sugar was Mom was on the couch scrolling through her phone. "Oh no," she said, not looking up. I completely forgot his insulin schedule. Guess that's just what happens when you choose to be selfish. That afternoon, I tried telling my school counselor. I didn't even finish the sentence before my phone buzzed. Mom's text. "Gigi's inhaler seems to be missing. Help me look when you get home." I ran home and found Mom holding the inhaler, examining it like she'd never seen one before. "Found it," she said cheerfully. Accidents happen when you're not here to prevent them, don't they? But the worst part was what I walked in on that evening. Mom had all the kids who could talk sitting in a circle. "Remember," she was saying in her sweet voice, "if anyone ever asks, I'm the best mommy ever because if you say anything else, they'll take you away and you'll never see each other again." Year-old Gigi was crying. "But you're mean to Talia." "My name." Mom's face went cold. "Talia wants to abandon you. I'm the only one keeping this family together." "Now, what do we say if someone asks?" The children chorused in tiny, terrified voices. "You're the best mommy ever." She made them practice it 5 more times before bed. I stopped fighting after that. If she wanted me to give it my all, I would do exactly that. I dropped out of school. Not officially, just stopped going. And when I did show up, I brought the toddlers. "These are mine," I told my chemistry teacher when she asked why I was bringing children to learn about the periodic table. I sold her jewelry to buy formula and kept every receipt. I used her credit card at the pharmacy. Let them flag it for fraud when a teenager bought $1 of prescription medications. Weeks later, she announced she was adopting premature twins with serious heart defects. "They need surgery within months or they won't survive," she said at dinner, like she was discussing the weather. "The adoption agency needs proof of a full-time caregiver." She looked right at me. "I told them you'd deferred college." The next morning, she left for a day charity retreat in the Bahamas. Just left a note on the counter with the twins' feeding schedule. One was on a heart monitor that beeped if his oxygen dropped below it dropped every hour. Then Francis, our 3-year-old, had a seizure in the bathtub while I was trying to cool the babies down. I called with the baby under each arm. Franticia convulsing on the bathroom floor. The paramedics found me sobbing, covered in vomit with kids, the twins' monitor shrieking. "Where are your parents?" they asked. I showed them Mom's text from the Bahamas. "Handle it. That's what you're for. Don't call again." I'm in a meditation session. The hospital social worker pulled me aside the next day. She had a file in thick. Our visits in years. All brought by me. Mom was never present. "She's getting an award tomorrow," I told the social worker. Mother of the Decade televised. The social worker's face was grim. "We've been building this case for months. Your teacher, the paramedics, the pharmacy, even your neighbors. Everyone saw it, but couldn't prove it until now." She paused, studying my face. "Did you know she's been collecting $1 a month in adoption subsidies?" I felt my knees buckle. While I sold her jewelry for formula, that's when I realized the system couldn't give me justice. And my mom forgot one crucial detail. When you take everything from someone, they've got nothing left to lose and everything to gain. I walked to the hospital cafeteria after Althea left and bought the cheapest coffee they had. The twins were still upstairs in the NICU with tubes and monitors everywhere. I sat there for an hour watching steam rise from the cup and made my choice. I was done protecting Mom and done letting her use these kids as props. I found Althea's card in my pocket and called her from the lobby. She picked up on the first ring like she'd been waiting. I told her I'd help with everything. Give them whatever they needed. She let out this long breath and said she'd been hoping for months I'd be ready. We set up a meeting for the next morning at a.m. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I pulled out the old shoebox from under my bed where I'd been keeping things. Every receipt from when I sold Mom's jewelry for formula was there. Every text she sent from vacation while kids were sick. Every photo I took at the hospital alone with crying babies. My hands shook as I sorted them into piles by date. 3 years of proof that she'd abandoned us over and over. I made copies on the printer and put the originals in a plastic bag. The next morning, I got the older kids breakfast and told them I had a doctor's appointment. I met Althea in the same hospital conference room, and she had someone new with her. Fletcher Kett from CPS shook my hand and started asking about each kid's medical needs. He had a notebook and wrote down everything about Dani's diabetes and Gigi's asthma and the twins' heart problems. He wanted to know exact medication schedules and which hospitals we'd been to. Fletcher explained that even with the twins in critical condition, they needed more to move fast. Mom's public image was too strong and she had too many supporters. The system moved slow unless they had something nobody could argue with. I pulled out my phone and started showing them everything. Photos of me alone at every appointment with timestamps showing Mom was posting from beaches. Screenshots of her text telling me to handle emergencies while she was at parties. Videos I'd taken of the younger kids crying and begging for food while she was gone. Fletcher's face got darker with each thing he looked at. He asked if he could make copies, and I handed him the phone. After the meeting, I walked to Minnie's house next door. She'd lived there years and seen everything. I asked if she'd be willing to be an emergency contact for the kids. She didn't even hesitate before saying yes. She told me she'd been watching ambulances pull up to our house for years and wondering when someone would do something. 2 days later, Mom came home early from the Bahamas with shopping bags from the duty-free store. She had that fake sweet voice she used after she'd been gone too long. She kept touching my shoulder and playing with my hair and promising we'd go somewhere nice after her awards ceremony next week. I could tell she knew something was different by how I looked at her. She started talking about how tired she was and how much she needed my help. That evening after dinner, she gathered the younger kids in the living room. I stood in the kitchen doorway with my phone recording behind my back. She made them sit in a circle and practice what to say if anyone asked about our family. They had to repeat that Mommy takes such good care of them over and over. Gigi started crying because she didn't want to lie. Mom's voice got cold, and she said Gigi might have to go live somewhere else if she couldn't remember her lines. The other kids got scared and started saying it louder. She made them practice for minutes until they all said it perfectly with big smiles. The next day, I went to the school for the first time in weeks. I found Dean McCormick in his chemistry classroom during lunch. I asked if he'd write down everything about the times I brought toddlers to his class. He said he'd already been keeping notes because he was worried about me. He showed me a folder with dates of every absence and photos he'd taken of me doing homework with babies on my lap. He said he'd write whatever statement I needed and had been waiting for someone to ask. My whole body felt lighter walking out of his classroom. People were finally seeing what had been happening. The evidence was everywhere, and I wasn't crazy or alone. Mom had been so careful about her image, but she forgot that other people had eyes. They saw me at the pharmacy buying hundreds of dollars of medicine. They saw me at the food bank with a wagon full of kids. They saw the ambulances and the police and me carrying sick babies to the ER in the morning. Fletcher called that afternoon to say they were building the case, but it would take time. The wheels were turning, but the system moved like it was stuck in mud. Meanwhile, the twins needed surgery soon, and Mom was planning her big award ceremony like nothing was wrong. I knew this was just the beginning of a long fight. But at least I wasn't fighting alone anymore. The next morning, I went straight to the school counselor's office before first period. Charity nearly looked up from her computer when I knocked on the doorframe. She waved me in and closed the door behind me. I sat down across from her while she pulled out a thick folder with my name on it. She opened it and spread papers across her desk. Each page had dates and notes written in her neat handwriting. She showed me attendance records going back years, with red marks covering nearly half the days. There were notes about every time I fell asleep in class, every test I missed, every assignment turned in late with baby handprints on the edges. She had been tracking everything since freshman year. She pointed to a column where she'd written the reasons I gave for each absence: medical emergency, hospital visit, sick sibling, doctor appointment. When you saw it all together, the pattern was undeniable. She told me she'd been concerned for years, but this was the first time she could actually prove it. She said she'd already written a statement for CPS and would testify if needed. I took pictures of every page with my phone. That afternoon, I drove to the fire station on Maple Street. Roy Farmer was washing an ambulance when I pulled up. He recognized me right away and set down the hose. We'd seen each other so many times at my house that introductions weren't necessary. He called his partner over, and the three of us sat on the bumper of the truck. Roy pulled out his phone and showed me photos he'd taken at our house, Mom's car in the driveway while I loaded kids into ambulances, with timestamps showing morning, night, even midnight. He said they'd been filing reports for years about her never being there during emergencies. His partner showed me their call log. Our address appeared over and over. Both said they'd provide official statements and testify. They gave me copies of their reports before I left. The next day, I met Cornelius Bush at the legal aid office downtown. The waiting room smelled like old coffee and paper. He was younger than I expected, with a messy desk piled high with case files. He explained that using Mom's credit cards could get me charged with fraud. The total was already in the thousands. He showed me the penalty guidelines. Jail time was possible if Mom pressed charges. But he said if I cooperated with CPS, they'd probably focus on the bigger issue: child endangerment. That was far more serious than credit card fraud. He helped me list every purchase I'd made: formula, medicine, diapers, nebulizer supplies, glucose tablets. I had receipts for most of it in a shoebox at home. He told me to organize them and make copies. He'd argue that I had no choice but to use the cards for medical necessities. That evening, I looked up Fiona Bailey's number from one of Mom's old newspaper clippings. My hands shook as I dialed. She answered on the third ring. I told her who I was and that I had information about Mom's adoptions. She grew quiet when I mentioned documentation. She said she'd written 6 articles about Mom, all glowing pieces about her charity work. I told her about the monthly subsidies, about Mom being in the Bahamas during medical emergencies. She sounded doubtful, but said she'd need proof before considering a story. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop the next day to review what I had done. I couldn't sleep that night, thinking about what might happen to the kids. At dawn, I got up and started packing bags. I found old backpacks and duffel bags in the garage. For each child, I packed their medications in labeled bags, their medical records, a change of clothes that fit, and their favorite stuffed animal or blanket. I wrote their names on index cards with my phone number. My hands shook as I thought about them being separated. Danny's diabetes supplies filled an entire bag. The twins' heart medications and monitors took another. Gigi's inhaler and allergy pens. Fanticia's seizure medication. I lined the bags up by the front door. Each one felt like it was breaking me a little more. The phone rang while I was making breakfast. Fletcher's voice sounded tired but steady. He told me they were planning everything around Mom's upcoming award ceremony. The timing would be perfect. She'd be on stage when CPS moved in. She wouldn't have time to coach the kids or twist the story. The media would already be there. The truth would come out before she could control it. He said keeping the children safe was the priority. Everything else would follow. Maybe Mom sensed something, because later that afternoon she changed all the locks on her bedroom door. Mom moved every medication into her locked room, saying I'd been forgetful and couldn't be trusted. Then she went on Facebook, posting about how exhausted she was, claiming I was acting aggressive and troubled. Her followers flooded her comments with prayers and sympathy, calling me ungrateful. That night, one of the twins' oxygen monitors failed. His oxygen dropped fast. I ran to Mom's locked door, but she ignored me while her TV played inside. I called Minnie, and together we moved the baby to the backup monitor. I photographed the broken machine, the locked door, and even recorded the sound of her TV while we worked to save him. 2 days later, Fletcher said the case was moving slowly and asked me to make a detailed video statement. I recorded everything, each child's medical needs, every time Mom abandoned us, the threats, the coaching, the Facebook posts. My voice cracked remembering Danny on the floor, Franticia's seizure, the twins nearly dying. I uploaded the videos to multiple cloud accounts and sent Fletcher the links. Fiona Bailey reviewed my evidence, but asked for more timestamps, third-party confirmation, official records. I sent her Mom's Instagram posts from the Bahamas that matched ER admission records, Facebook photos from galas that lined up with hospital stays, and credit card charges from resorts while bills went unpaid. When Fiona called back, her tone had changed. She finally believed me. The next morning, I found a state adoption agency envelope in the mail, subsidy payments for 3 years straight, thousands every month into Mom's account. Meanwhile, I had sold her jewelry to buy formula. Later that day, she was back on Facebook, painting me as jealous and unstable. Her followers attacked me in the comments until I locked down my accounts. That night, I packed emergency meds and hid them at Minnie's house for safety. Days later, Mom called a family meeting and hinted at placing the twins in medical foster care. The kids cried and clung to me. She just smiled like she'd won. Cornelius from Legal Aid warned I could face fraud charges for using Mom's credit cards, but helped me document every purchase with receipts showing they were for the children's medical needs. We built a spreadsheet and restitution plan. At CPS, I spent hours writing a sworn statement with every date, name, and medical emergency. Fletcher said it was the most detailed report he'd seen and that it would help speed the case. A few days later, Mom staged another charity photo op. I filmed as she posed with the kids, ignoring Danny as he grew shaky and pale. Only when the photographer pointed it out did she look up. Reviewing the footage, I knew it wasn't enough. She could still spin it. Then I remembered our shared phone tracking account. When I pulled her location history, my heart pounded. The records showed her in the Bahamas during 5 ER visits, at a spa during Danny's diabetic crisis, and out at parties during 8 other emergencies. Every timestamp matched the hospital records I'd been keeping. I sent screenshots to Fletcher and Fiona right away. The next morning, Minnie brought me a notarized statement detailing everything she'd seen over the years, hearing Mom coach the kids, ambulances at our house, even finding Vance wandering outside alone. She'd logged dates and times for all of it. I cried when I hugged her. The following day, Dean called me after school. He and Charity had been working together, collecting attendance slips, tardy notices, and notes showing the days I'd brought toddlers to school or fallen asleep at my desk with Gigi in my lap. Their timeline matched my hospital records exactly. They copied everything to send to Fletcher and the judge. Later, Althea called, frustrated. The hospital lawyers wanted to cut details from her statement because of privacy laws. That meant delays at least a week, since Mom was still the legal guardian on paper. When I got home, Mom was sitting with all the receipts I'd hidden spread out in front of her. Calmly, she warned me not to ruin her awards ceremony. She said she'd already spoken to lawyers about restraining orders and fraud charges. If I embarrassed her, she'd make sure I never saw the kids again, telling them I abandoned them. The next morning, I bought a prepaid phone with cash and backed up every piece of evidence, photos, videos, screenshots, to multiple clouds and emails. I mailed a USB copy to Cornelius. 2.2 days later, CPS scheduled a home visit. Mom went into overdrive, scrubbing the house, organizing supplies, and coaching the kids nonstop. She threatened them to smile and give the right answers. While she drilled them, I hid a baby monitor in my room, angled toward where the caseworker would sit. When CPS arrived, The house looked spotless, and the kids performed exactly as trained, smiling, praising Mom, and insisting she took wonderful care of them. The caseworker asked the kids about their care. Danny repeated his rehearsed lines about Mom managing his insulin, though his hands shook from low blood sugar. The baby monitor caught some audio but missed Mom pinching Vance when he went off script. The worker seemed suspicious, but had no proof to remove the kids. After she left, Mom celebrated with pizza. Hours later, Danny collapsed with dangerously low blood sugar. I treated him from my emergency stash, documenting everything, while Mom bragged on the phone about how well the visit went. The next morning, Cornelius called. He'd secured an emergency protective order to stop Mom from keeping me from the kids. That night, she locked me out of the house with the children inside, smirking from the window. Police came but called it a family dispute and left.